Hello, and welcome to Astrology Level 1. This class is on astrology chart shapes and patterns. So, Mark Edmund Jones identified 7 types of charts depending on how the planets were placed. I use this because I link it back to the personality and the psychology of the native. You're going to first look at the hemispheres, see if the planets are up top or in the lower hemisphere. You're also going to see if it's in the Eastern hemisphere or the Western hemisphere. And I'm going to show you some examples in a minute. And then you're going to identify the shape and see what this chart says. You do this as an intuitive guidance, as a visual representation of the person's psyche and their life before you even start delineating the chart with elements, with planets, with aspects. So let's start with the 7 types. This is the bundle or the wedge. In this person's chart, as you could see, here's the second house. There's a lot of focus in life in this particular area because many houses appear to be empty. And I use that because no house is empty. They always have decanats and cusps. But the focal point is going to be here in the 12, 1, 2 sector because that's the cluster of the planets, even all here through the 10th through the 2nd. So this person can lack balance, but they would be really good at jobs that require deep concentration and persistence in a certain area. In this person's psychology, we see everything in the 2nd house. It's in Sagittarius. Freedom is probably something that they value, and they're probably going to have a strong inclination to material possessions. The locomotive. The locomotive, as you see, all of this part of the chart is sort of clustered, but then there's these 2 houses that appear empty. So let's use the example of the Neptune. Neptune is the locomotive planet that they push into action. They have a strong drive to get through what they perceive as lack, and then it kicks in over here in the 6th house, again, across the entire chart. The space that they feel is empty in their psyche feels to be a perceived lack. They have a strong drive because they want to fill that lack. And so this planet here acts as a locomotive to get them through the lacking areas in their life. The splay. The splay, you could see, has sections. There's a minimum of 3 sections. This is called the triad of focus, where the person has a cluster or stellium. So in this person, it's the 3rd, the 5th, and the 11th. You may not off the bat find something that connects the 3rd, 5th, and 11th, but part of the native's job in the life is to kind of tie them all together. They have a lot of strong talents. We have to try to help them find a way to put them all together so it's something marketable or something that they could live out in their life. The triad of focus means that these 3 areas are going to be areas where they have talent, and they're going to have a lot of focal point in their life around those areas. The bowl. The bowl, you could see, is when everything is clustered somewhat on one hemisphere. So in this person's chart, mostly everything is between the 10 and the 4th houses. This is the north node. In some charts, people don't even use the nodes. And this is the earth, it doesn't count. So pretty much this entire part of the chart is empty. So the focal point is on the right side of the chart. They tend to be very highly focused, especially over here where there's a cluster or a stellium. They're self-contained because they're only living on one side of the chart, if you will. They have difficulty incorporating the opposite hemisphere. So they might have trouble incorporating this side of the chart. Now, people like in this case that have more on the right side tend to be more of a follower, and people that have the same bowl but on the left side of the chart tend to be more of a leader. The bucket. The bucket is where everything is clustered and there's something called a handle planet. So here you see the entire focus on the 11th, a little in the 12th and 1st house. This is the bucket. These people are single-minded, single-purposed, and the handle actually is a very strong area of focus. This is called the singleton, and this becomes a very key focus. So it's obviously not balanced. They have a lot of focus in the 11th, but they might actually put even more focus on the 5th. And Saturn, being such an important planet, will take up a lot of sort of the mental space and the mental energy of this person's life. The seesaw or the hourglass. This is an interesting type of chart pattern because the person can see both sides of the story. They can see this aspect and they can see it from here. But what happens is they always need two alternatives. It creates instability. They want certainty. It creates indecision because if I do on the right side, then I'll get this option. If I do on this option, if on this side, I'll get this option. So there's like a cognitive dissonance and an incongruence because they have the ability to see both sides of the story. The splash is a jack of all trades. If you could see in this chart, there are little gaps here in the 5th and 6th and in the 12th and in the 9th, but really the chart is splattered all over the place. When you look at this person's sort of psyche, you're like, oh, wow, they're all over the place. And that's exactly that. They tend to have scattered energy. They need variety. They're good at diversity. They're a jack of all trades, but often a master of none. And a lot of times our job is to help them sort of find one focal point, one thread that they can pull in their life. Now, the next few are not chart patterns, but they're bigger issues, grantee, grand cross. This is an added layer to the personality and struggles that the person might find. So a grantee is exactly that. They have a T, and there is an area in their life that isn't affected by the T. And that outlet of the grantee is where they're going to live out most of their energy. So for instance, here you have from Sagittarius, Neptune, Black Moon, opposite Saturn and Gemini. And then over here to finish the T is this cluster stellium in Pisces. There's nothing in Virgo. So the midheaven is in Virgo. This is the Earth. It doesn't count for this example. And they're going to live out a lot of their focal point in the 9th, which is in Virgo, and the 10th. So this is going to be the way that the energy channels to complete it. Professionally, a public image, spirituality, travel, etc. They need to have an outlet to complete the friction that the grantee creates. The grand trine. You can have a grand trine in air, in fire, in earth, and water. Depending on the trine, we'll have a focus of where this person's energy will be mainly focused. A trine is always positive. If you go back to astrology basics, when we talked about trines and crosses, the trines are going to be positive aspects, and the squares or the T's or crosses are going to be harder aspects. So this person has a grand trine in air. So here they have Libra, here they have Aquarius, and here they have Gemini. For a grand trine, you need all three of the signs of the element to be speaking to one another, aspected as trines. And in this case, it's air. So it's going to be relationships. It's going to be communication. It's going to be friends, social activities, intellect, curiosity, where the person thrives. And then there's a grand cross. These people feel that everything is a battle, everything is a struggle. There's no way out. There's nowhere that they can disperse the energy. So they have a grand cross on the mutable cross. The cross that it's in will determine how they feel it. Maybe they always have to feel adaptable, since the mutable cross is adaptability. Maybe they feel they always have to give in. Maybe they don't give in. Maybe they aren't adaptable. We have to see based on other aspects how it plays out. But here they have Saturn opposite Chiron Mars. So that's the one leg of the cross. And then Sagittarius and Gemini over here is the other leg of the cross. So they don't really have an outlet in which to let the energy leave. It's very caught up in the cross energy. So we have to find options for them where they can release the energy so that they don't feel that they're so tied up. Thank you.